There's been a lot of movement, a lot of talk about DOGE, and you're seeing headlines. And I had to ask you, what does this mean? What do they actually mean when you hear a headline like DOGE enters the IRS? That was like breaking news. It was coming in overnight that this was happening from sources saying, hey, this is happening. The Pentagon, DOGE enters the Pentagon. This is both physical and theoretical at the same time.
That's right. So what you're looking at here is the team from DOGE will go into the agencies, and they're, in layman's terms, they're effectively conducting an audit. So they're going into the IRS. The IRS is getting a little bit of a taste of their own medicine by the teams going in there, reviewing the spending, reviewing the contracts, reviewing the outlays, and looking for signs of waste, fraud, and abuse, or just inefficiency. We know the IRS is inefficient. They still use typewriters and fax machines to conduct a lot of their business. So they're looking for these areas where things can be made better, costs can be cut, where there's programs that don't line up with the president's agenda and the administration's agenda, and that's what they're doing. Last night, they went to the IRS and physically went into the building so they can get into the systems, the storage that's there as far as like the data and things of that nature, because these things are stored on site at the headquarters. And then today, they're going over to the Pentagon, which Secretary Hegseth had said, we welcome DOGE to the Pentagon. And we'll get into more of what this looks like practically and what they're looking for and even some of what they're finding in the following segments. But it is, especially for fiscal conservatives, this is a very exciting time because we have long decried the wasteful spending and the reckless spending and out of control spending of these federal bureaucracies. The entire Tea Party movement started because they were taxed enough already. They were seeing wasteful, inefficient spending, and the government continued to tax more and more. So this is a long time coming for these federal bureaucracies from those conservatives that have always been fiscal conservatives, concerned about the way the budgets of the U.S. government keep spiraling out of control, snowballing, and even that was back in 2010. 15 years ago, I don't think a fiscal conservative could have imagined how out of control the spending has been in Washington, D.C. And when you look at the budget of the Pentagon, it's $800 billion. We're getting close to $1 trillion budget. It's 12% of the total federal budget. So now, look, it's a big chunk of where our money goes.
And of all the places, you would like the Pentagon, you would like our defense to be well funded.
Right, and they are very well funded. Yeah. But here is the problem. They failed their 7th audit in a row last year at the Pentagon. So they can't even account for where all this money is going. We have seen all these stories about how the unaccounted for money that was sent to Ukraine, that, you know, hundreds of millions and billions of dollars have gone probably to grift in that country, to corruption, of taking it, it's not going where it actually was meant to go. What Pete Hegseth said, and I want to point people to this, during his confirmation hearing, was he said, as I've said to you in many of our private meetings, when President Trump chose me for this position, the primary charge he gave me was to bring the warrior culture back to the Department of Defense. He, like me, wants a Pentagon laser-focused on warfighting, lethality, meritocracy, standards, and readiness. That's it. That's my job. When you have a bureaucracy, which is what the Pentagon is, that has failed 7 audits in a row, meaning they can't account for where all of this $800 billion is going, then you have a culture problem. And that is what Pete Hegseth is tasked with changing, making the military focused back on protecting America and the relationship with many of the contractors that continually build things for the government and continually bill them for projects. It's out of control. And I have a prediction. I think you're going to see that Elon Musk, DOGE, and Pete Hegseth have done the impossible. They are miracle workers,
They're
literally.
working together.
What they are going to do is they are going to make those on the left all of a sudden be the biggest supporters of our troops.
Right.
Because now the headline and spin you're going to see is that they're making it more dangerous for our troops. They are making it so that we aren't going to be protected here at home, when they are the ones that have been forcing DEI and all these pet projects on the military. But when you have a bureaucracy, we've seen how many of the generals have become so political instead of remaining generals within the Pentagon.
Right.
You have a situation where it becomes just like any other bureaucracy. And when you have $800 billion and you know that the lethality of the military isn't where it has been, what we need is a culture change, and people want their money spent wisely. And so that's what this is doing. It is using the funds that they have to redirect and make it more effective. It's not saying let's just slash the money and not do anything about it. They are going after waste, fraud, and abuse, as they've said many times, to make sure that every dollar spent is for that purpose of being laser focused on warfighting, lethality, meritocracy, standards, and readiness. That's the job and the role of the Pentagon and their budget.
I think when it's being exposed, it's really interesting because it's not just the things that are kind of on the top of our head that we know is happening. It's so much that's happening, sometimes literally underground, but it's happening sort of on the underground of spending, whether that is things that are just, like you said, government efficiency. Some of it is just things that have not been kept up to date. We're running on old technology. We're spending ridiculous amounts of money on that. It's not all just going in and going, okay, we don't need these employees. It's going, we are behind the times.
And when you look at with the way the government operates with budgets, it's an inefficient program. This isn't like a business where if you have a down year, you find places to cut immediately, or if you don't spend all your budget, that gets rolled over. With the government spending, if you don't spend all your budget, then Congress thinks you don't need that much, so they lower your allocation the next year. So you see spending sprees where they just start buying stuff. There's these infamous $10,000 toilet seats that are talked about. That's kind of a highlight from the Pentagon of some of the wasteful spending. It's many times because bureaucrats see at the end of the year that they have more budget to spend.
What does a $10,000 toilet seat get you?
Don't know.
All the features.
But once again, a lot of times you don't get anything special.
Nice, yeah.
It's because the military contractors just overcharge for these things.
Okay, that's right.
And then they use up their budget so that the next year they can get
porcelain.
They can get an increase in budget. So that's how the spending snowballs. They are literally wasting your money just to ensure that their budget doesn't get reduced the next year. Because if they get their budget reduced, then they see that they're not doing their job. Washington is addicted to spending. Every bureaucracy, even the ones that keep us safe, like the Pentagon, is addicted to spending, and wasteful spending at that. If every dollar of the $800 billion was accounted for and shown how it goes to protect America, and we felt really secure right now in the way that our military is prepared to protect us under the last 4 years, I think everyone would be like, okay, that's fine, move on. But we know that's not the case. And what would the traditional Washington modus operandi be? It would be just give them more money,
right,
so that they can make you more prepared.
Let's talk about that. There's a caller coming in, Freddie from Florida. And look, as someone who has family who's involved in some of these government contract works over the years, I've heard these kind of horror stories, Freddie. But go ahead with your comment.
I work in the state of Florida. I'm a roofing contractor and a general contractor, and I work in the field of roofing at the VA hospitals and the government facilities in the state of Florida. And they literally waste so much money on these projects. I could literally do the jobs probably for a third of what they make them out to be.
Yeah, I mean, Freddie, I've heard those stories over and over again. So this isn't just you saying this. Again, I have friends and family who've worked directly with this, and they have complained. They've pushed back and said, we don't need to spend this. We don't need to do this. And sometimes they're saying, no, you're going to do it. I don't care if we're going to give you the best materials and you're going to cover it up with drywall. We don't care.
That's right. And that's why getting into these agencies to find this and to restructure the way this goes. We talk about the government spending, but we also have to be looking at the businesses that are so comfortable with this. They are going to push back egregiously. You can't do this because so many businesses in America and NGOs, which we'll talk about as well, non-governmental organizations, are fully dependent on government dollars. They can't survive without it. And they're turning record profits because of the way they build the government. And the bureaucrats are more than happy to sign it over because they're not interested in saving the American taxpayer money. They are interested in maxing out their budget so they can ask for more the next year. It's out of control.
We are so excited to announce the ACLJ's brand new app, completely redesigned to provide you with the best tools available to partner with us at the ACLJ. You can watch the daily Secular program, sign the petitions, customize your ACLJ membership experience, donate with the click of a button, and receive up-to-the-minute critical updates that the mainstream media can't censor. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to your phone's app store, search ACLJ, and click install. It's that simple.